It started as a lawsuit designed to pressure, backed by top-tier lawyers and headlines featuring Melania Trump's name. She entered the courtroom convinced her reputation would be safeguarded, confident Jasmine Crockett would be trapped. The media leaned forward, expecting a clear win. But within 9 seconds, one witness, her own, shattered that image completely. The testimony struck like glass breaking on stone. And when the sound faded, Melania's case didn't stand taller. It had collapsed. Stay tuned. And if you haven't already, hit subscribe, because this courtroom turnaround is unlike anything you'd expect. The lawsuit arrived cloaked in drama. The federal courtroom projected solemnity, oak-paneled walls, flags draped behind the judge, rows of journalists jotting notes before proceedings even began. Officially, it was a space for impartial justice. In reality, it carried the weight of fame, politics, and controversy converging. At the plaintiff's table sat Melania Trump, composed, her legal team positioned around her like a guard of honor. Her expression revealed nothing, but her stance was intentional. She wanted the cameras to capture more than a former First Lady. She wanted them to see someone protecting her name, her brand, her legacy. Across the aisle, Jasmine Crockett entered quietly. Her walk was steady, shoulders straight. She brought no entourage, no theatrics, just a slim folder tucked under her arm. She greeted her attorney with a nod, placed her papers neatly on the table, and sat with quiet confidence. The judge called the session to order. "This court will come to order," he declared, his voice firm and commanding. Opening statements unfolded with a sense of performance. Melania's lawyer portrayed Crockett as careless and disrespectful, a politician who had crossed lines that should never be crossed. He assured the court of solid proof, credible testimony, and a key witness who would clarify everything. Reporters eagerly took notes. The story was already forming. Melania Trump fighting to protect her reputation. Crockett's lawyer responded with fewer words, calm and measured. He avoided showmanship. "We will let the record and the witness speak for themselves," he said simply. The scene was set. Tension hung in the air, and many assumed Melania's influence would overpower the congresswoman across from her. What no one in that room predicted was that the turning point wouldn't come from Crockett. It would come from Melania's own witness. The first cracks in her case appeared even before testimony began. Melania's attorney stood, fastened his jacket, and walked confidently to the center of the courtroom. His delivery was polished and strategic, the kind designed to sway jurors and make headlines. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began, "we are here because my client's good name, dignity, and legacy have been under attack. Today, we present the truth, and you will hear it from the person who witnessed everything." He motioned toward the stand. A well-dressed woman in her 50s rose, ready to testify. She walked to the stand. She was introduced as a longtime family associate, someone who had known the Trumps for years. Cameras flashed as she raised her hand and took the oath. Melania straightened in her seat, lifting her chin and focusing intently on the witness. She believed this was the moment momentum would shift. The attorney questioned her with deliberate rhythm, aiming to build sympathy. "Would you say Mrs. Trump has always acted with integrity?" "Yes. And would you say she's been unfairly criticized by public figures like Ms. Crockett?" "Absolutely." Her answers were smooth and precise, exactly what Melania's team wanted on record. Reporters wrote quickly, some nodding as they drafted early headlines. It seemed inevitable. Crockett would be portrayed as reckless, and Melania as a dignified figure defending her name. But then the atmosphere changed. Crockett's attorney stood slowly and approached the stand. His tone was calm, almost casual, but his focus was sharp. He began, "You've testified that Mrs. Trump has always carried herself with integrity." "Correct, yes." "And you've said her legacy is beyond question." "Correct, yes." He paused, then placed a folder on the podium. The room leaned in. The air tightened. Inside was a document the jury hadn't seen, and the press hadn't expected. He tapped the folder lightly and asked, "Would you agree that truth is a foundation of integrity?" "Yes." "Then could you explain why this document, signed by you, tells a very different story?" the gallery murmured. Reporters froze mid-sentence. Melania shifted uneasily in her chair. The witness blinked, her confidence wavering. The document was entered into evidence, and in an instant, the foundation of Melania's case was at risk. 9 seconds was all it took for the courtroom to change. Crockett's attorney held up the document, turning to the second page. It appeared on the large courtroom projector for everyone to see. It was a signed affidavit dated 2 years earlier. In her own words, the witness had written Mrs. Trump often prioritizes image over truth, and her legacy will be remembered for appearances rather than substance. The courtroom buzzed. Reporters sat upright, typing rapidly. The attorney's voice stayed even but firm. That is your signature. Correct, yes. She whispered, and those are your words, yes. How long did it take you to write this statement? She hesitated. A few minutes. So, in less than 10 seconds just now, you've affirmed under oath that Mrs. Trump's legacy is built on appearances, not integrity. The silence that followed was heavy. The clock ticked. 1, 2, 3 seconds. The gallery counted. Tension filled the room. Finally, the witness spoke again, voice shaking. Yes, and just like that, in under 9 seconds, the testimony meant to support Melania instead broke her image. Jurors shifted in their seats, some narrowing their eyes, others taking notes. The contradiction was clear. The very witness brought to defend Melania had openly stated something entirely different before Melania sat frozen at the plaintiff's table. Her attorney leaned in, whispering urgently, but she didn't respond. Her chin trembled slightly, her eyes locked on the glowing document. Crockett didn't smirk or gloat. She simply looked toward the jury, as if to say, "You heard it." Laptops lit up across the media section. Headlines were forming instantly. Melania's own witness undermines her legacy. What began as a controlled lawsuit had transformed into a live courtroom unraveling. The witness hadn't just contradicted Melania, she redirected the entire atmosphere. The gallery buzzed with uneasy energy. Journalists deleted their earlier drafts, replacing them with this unexpected tone. Jurors leaned forward, processing what they'd just heard. Even the judge paused briefly before continuing, his expression tight, fully aware of the weight of the admission that Melania's attorney sprang up, urgency in his voice. Objection! Taken out of context. The witness referred to public perception, not actual conduct. But the damage was done. Context couldn't erase a signed affidavit displayed 20 feet wide. The jury had read it. Reporters had recorded it. And Melania's witness had confirmed it was hazed. Crockett's counsel let the objection hang, then replied evenly, "The best measure of truth is consistency. Tonight, we've witnessed inconsistency under oath." The judge overruled the objection. The gavel struck once, the sound echoing through the courtroom like a verdict. Melania sat still at the plaintiff table. Her once upright posture slumped slightly. She avoided eye contact with the jury, gripping the table's edge until her knuckles turned white. Across from her, Jasmine Crockett leaned back calmly. She didn't need to speak or gesture. Her silence carried the same weight as a contradiction now recorded in testimony. Everyone in the room recognized it. The gallery, the press, even Melania's supporters. One staffer whispered too loudly, "That's a clip?" And it was. In real time, the key moment was already escaping the courtroom. 9 seconds of testimony had undone months of legal strategy. The courtroom sensed a shift first. The world followed soon after. Before the gavel struck to continue proceedings, the clip had spread beyond the walls, to millions of screens. A 38-second video appeared online. Melania's witness on the stand, voice shaking, confirming under oath her own words about Melania valuing image over substance. The IT spread quickly. On Twitter, users captioned it, "Melania's own witness destroys her case in 9 seconds." On TikTok, the moment looped endlessly, creators layering dramatic music over the witness's quiet yes. News alerts flashed. Trump's witness shatters her case. Inside the courtroom, phones vibrated across the gallery. Reporters stopped taking notes and began typing breaking stories before the hearing had even ended. Melania's attorney tried to regain control, firing off rapid questions. "Did you mean Mrs. Trump lacks integrity? Did you intend to damage her reputation?" The witness stumbled through her response. "No, I meant people saw her that way. Not that she is that way," but the explanation came too late. Online, her hesitation, stammer, and conflicting statements had already been captured and shared. The damage wasn't in the clarification. It was in the original 9 seconds. Crockett's attorney didn't push further. He simply glanced at the jury, then returned to his seat. The silence that followed was louder than any argument. Melania sat rigid, her jaw clenched, hands folded tightly in front of her. She glanced toward the gallery now and then, as if searching for a single supportive expression. Instead, She saw the glow of screens as people replayed the moment again and again. Outside the courthouse, cameras crowded the steps. Commentators went live, narrating the development. A stunning collapse of Melania Trump. Her own witness has undermined her credibility in seconds. The case was no longer about evidence or legal arguments. It had become about a single moment, one that couldn't be spun away. Sometimes the truth doesn't need words. It shows itself in faces.by the 25-minute mark. That 9-second testimony was already circulating among the phones in the gallery. Jurors shifted in their seats, their expressions revealing what no official statement had yet said. One juror leaned back, arms crossed, raising their eyebrows as if silently asking, "This is your defense?" Another leaned forward, pen paused, staring at Melania with a mix of disbelief and curiosity. At the plaintiff's table, Melania didn't move. Her attorney whispered urgently in her ear, but she didn't react. Her eyes stayed locked on the witness stand, her face showing what her words didn't. Her once composed expression faltered. Her lips pressed into a thin line, her jaw tightening with frustration she could no longer conceal. The witness, still on the stand, avoided Melania's eyes completely. She dabbed her forehead with a tissue, her voice quiet, her posture shrinking a little more with each passing moment. The damage wasn't just in what she said. It was in the shaking hands, the shallow breaths, and the unmistakable weight of regret hanging over her. Across the aisle, Jasmine Crockett sat poised and steady. She didn't smile, didn't gloat, didn't even adjust her posture. Her silence conveyed everything. This wasn't a victory she had to claim. It was one Melania's team had handed her. Reporters documented every detail. Their notes shifted from quoting testimony to describing the scene. Melania, tight jaw, staring at witness. Jurors, visibly uneasy. Crockett, calm, focused, almost serene. The judge glanced at the jury, then the clock, exhaled softly, and called for a recess. Even he seemed to acknowledge that the trial's momentum had turned irreversibly. As Melania rose to leave, cameras snapped rapidly. Her expression, a mix of frustration, disbelief, and a flicker of panic, told the story more clearly than any headline could. By the time she exited, her face was already circulating online. 9 seconds had damaged her public image. Crockett's final statement would seal it. When the court reconvened, the atmosphere had shifted. The jury appeared heavier, the gallery quieter, and reporters more focused. Everyone understood the case was no longer centered on legal evidence. It revolved around a collapse they had just witnessed. Melania's attorney made a final attempt. Standing firmly, he spoke with defiance, arguing that the affidavit had been misrepresented, that context had been ignored. His gestures grew larger, his voice louder, but his words carried little weight. The viral clip had already shaped public perception. Then Jasmine Crockett rose. She walked to the center of the courtroom with deliberate calm, no rush, no theatrics. Her voice was steady, each word measured. "Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, you don't need my words. You don't need long speeches. You heard 9 seconds of truth from their own witness. Integrity wasn't broken by me. It was broken right here." She paused, turning slightly toward Melania. Her gaze fixed, her tone dropped, calm, clear, unshaken. "You can sue me, Mrs. Trump, but you cannot sue the truth." The line struck like a gavel. The room fell silent. Reporters instantly jotted it down. Jurors leaned back. Some nodded subtly. Melania's face tightened, her hands gripping the table edge. She didn't reply, because she couldn't. The judge called for order, but it was unnecessary. The silence after Crockett's words spoke louder than any ruling. The case wasn't officially over, but in that moment, everyone in the courtroom understood the verdict had already been reached. Was Jasmine Crockett right to dismantle Melania Trump's case with one sharp line, or did she go too far? Share your thoughts in the comments, and if you missed our previous story, Trump tells Barack Obama, "Sit down, boy." His reply left America speechless. Go watch it now. Don't forget to subscribe, because the next clash will be even bigger.